Deborah's story, the only woman who served as a judge in Israel, is an inspiring tale of bravery, trust in God, and leadership during troubled times. In an age led mostly by men, she stood out as both a national leader and a prophetess admired by everyone. Her journey challenges how we think about leadership and shows that God can choose anyone, no matter their gender or background, to fulfill His plans. Let's explore this powerful story and see how a remarkable woman helped shape Israel's destiny. After Joshua passed away, Israel entered a difficult era known as the Time of the Judges. It was a season marked by political confusion and spiritual decline among God's people. Without firm leadership, chaos took over in society and values. The book of Judges captures this disorder. In chapter 21, verse 25, it says, "At that time, Israel had no ruler, and everyone did whatever they wanted. During this time, the people of Israel repeated the same pattern over and over, abandoning God, being defeated, and then being rescued. They would forget the Lord, start worshiping foreign gods, and then face attacks from enemy nations. When the suffering became too much, they begged God for help, and He would choose a judge to rescue them. This wasn't just coincidence, it reflected the special covenant between Israel and God. Judges explains this pattern clearly. In chapter 2, verses 14 to 16, we read a summary of how it worked. The Lord became angry with Israel and let raiders take over. He handed them to their enemies, and they could no longer protect themselves. When they went into battle, the Lord fought against them, just as He had warned. They were overwhelmed, but then God sent leaders to save them from those who attacked them. These events were more than just history. They showed how God stayed faithful even when His people weren't. When Israel ignored Him, He allowed them to face the results of their actions. Still, He never fully turned away. Every time they asked for mercy, He listened. In this setting of rebellion and hardship, Israel faced one of its worst threats. Judges describes this moment clearly. In chapter 4, verses 1 to 3, it says, "After Ehud died, the Israelites again did what displeased the Lord. So He let Jabin, a king of Canaan who ruled from Hazor, take control. His army commander Sisera lived in Harosheth Hagoyim. Sisera had 900 iron chariots and was brutal to the Israelites for 20 years. So they cried out to the Lord. Jabin and his war chief Sisera ruled Israel harshly. With a strong army and hundreds of iron chariots, they controlled God's people for 2 long decades. This wasn't a short or minor hardship. For 2 full decades, the Israelites lived under the harsh control of the Canaanites. The iron chariots mentioned in the passage were a major advancement in warfare at the time. They gave the Canaanites a huge edge in battle, especially against the Israelite foot soldiers. With this technology and Sisera's skilled command, the Canaanite army appeared unbeatable from a human point of view. The people of Israel lived in constant fear, enduring mistreatment and oppression. Their suffering went beyond military defeat. It affected their economy and way of life too. God's people likely had to pay high taxes, lost freedom to travel or worship, and may have even been forced to work for their enemies. The situation felt hopeless, and many probably wondered if God had abandoned them. In this dark time, just when hope was almost gone, God remained true to His word and chose Deborah to serve as Israel's judge and prophet. The Bible introduces her in a powerful and rare way. In Judges 4, verses 4 and 5, it says, "Deborah, a prophet and wife of Lapidoth, was judging Israel then. She held court under the palm of Deborah, located between Ramah and Bethel in the hill country of Ephraim, and the Israelites came to her to settle their disputes." Deborah was a one-of-a-kind figure in Israel's story. As a prophetess, she received and shared God's messages with the people. This spiritual responsibility was vital in a time when the nation had drifted far from God's ways. Through her, God renewed communication with His people, urging them to return to their sacred agreement with Him. As a judge, Deborah settled arguments and led the nation in key matters. This role wasn't just about making rulings, it often included leading the people and defending them. Judges were chosen by God to guide and rescue His people when they were in trouble. Deborah's position as a woman in such a leadership role was very unusual back then, showing that God can choose anyone to lead, regardless of gender. The palm tree mentioned in the story, called the Palm of Deborah, became a respected place of judgment and advice. It wasn't just a location, it became a symbol of fairness and God's guidance among his people. People traveled from different parts of Israel to hear her wise advice. Sitting beneath that tree, Deborah listened carefully to each case and, with God's direction, gave clear and fair judgments. This moment in the story highlights how important it is for leaders to stay close to the people. Deborah didn't live hidden away in a palace or a religious center. She made herself available, willing to listen and give guidance based on God's direction. The deep trust people had in Deborah was clear. In a society where men held almost all leadership roles, everyone still respected her authority. She wasn't just a judge because of her title. Her character and close walk with God earned her that trust. Deborah's leadership brought a major change for the nation. After 20 years of hardship, the Israelites finally had someone to help lead them back to God and toward freedom. Her presence reminded the people that God had not left them, even during their worst struggles. With Deborah fully recognized as both judge and prophet, things were about to take a dramatic turn. The Israelites had asked God for help, and now, through Deborah, he was going to act. The book of Judges shows how this rescue mission began. In chapter 4, verse 6, it says, "She called for Barak, son of Abinoam, from Kadesh in Naphtali, and told him, 'This message from God, given through Deborah, started a new chapter in Israel's story. God didn't just choose Deborah. He also chose Barak to lead the military effort to fight the Canaanites. Barak's role was important and carefully chosen. He was from Kadesh in the Naphtali region, which had suffered deeply under the Canaanites. That meant he had a personal reason to fight for freedom. He also likely knew the land well, which would help in the coming battle. The instructions God gave to Deborah were clear and detailed. Barak was to bring together 10,000 men from the tribes of Naphtali and Zebulun. These tribes were in the northern part of Israel, near Mount Tabor, where the army was to gather. Mount Tabor wasn't chosen at random. It stood at the edge of the lands belonging to Naphtali, Zebulun, and Issachar. It was also tall, about 588 meters high, which gave a full view of the surrounding area, including the Jezreel Valley, where the battle would likely unfold. Deborah continued to share what God had revealed. In verse 7, she told Barak, "I will bring Sisera, the commander of Jabin's army, along with his chariots and soldiers, to the Kishon River, and I will hand him over to you." This message was especially meaningful. God wasn't just promising victory. He was also giving insight into the battle plan. The idea was to draw Sisera's army to the Kishon River. Though usually a quiet stream, this river could turn into a dangerous flood during heavy rain. As we'll see later, this detail played a key role in the outcome of the battle. God's assurance that Sisera would be defeated by Barak was a clear promise of success. Still, this promise required Barak to take a step of faith. He had to believe what God had said through Deborah and take action by rallying the troops and preparing for war. Barak's reply to this divine mission tells us a lot about both his personality and what faith really means. In verse 8, Barak responds. He says to her, "If you come with me, I'll go, but if you don't come, I won't go." At first, this might seem like hesitation or doubt. After all, God had just promised victory. Why wasn't Barak willing to lead alone? But looking deeper, we see a more thoughtful reason. Barak understood the value of Deborah's presence. As a prophet, she represented God's voice and presence among the people. Her being there during the battle would constantly remind everyone that God was with them. At a time when strong spiritual leadership was as important as military skill, Deborah's support could strengthen the soldiers' morale. Deborah's reply to his request gives us more insight. In verse 9, she answers, "I'll go with you, but because of how you're choosing to go about this, the honor won't be yours. The Lord will hand Sisera over to a woman." Deborah agreed to join Barak, showing her full dedication to Israel's mission and her courage to lead from the front, not just in word, but in action. Still, she gave a prophecy. The credit for defeating Sisera wouldn't go to Barak, but to a woman. This prediction is powerful for a few reasons. First, it breaks the norms of that era, where military success was usually celebrated by and for men. Second, it creates suspense in the story. Who would this woman be? As we'll discover later, the answer is unexpected. Once Deborah and Barak reached an understanding, the preparations for war began. Verse 10 tells us, Barak gathered the tribes of Zebulun and Naphtali, and 10,000 men followed him. Deborah went with him. Organizing this army wasn't a simple task. After 2 decades under enemy rule, many Israelites were likely discouraged and scared. Bringing together 10,000 willing fighters to challenge the well-equipped Canaanite forces, including their terrifying iron chariots, required boldness and faith. The fight with the Canaanites was a turning point in Israel's journey, signaling the end of a long period of suffering under King Jabin's control. The coming clash between the troops led by Deborah and Barak and Sisera's powerful forces was about to change everything. Judges gives a clear picture of what happened next. In chapter 4, verse 12, it says, "When Sisera heard that Barak, son of Abinoam, had climbed Mount Tabor, this news caught the Canaanite general off guard. He thought the area was fully under his control. Sisera acted quickly and decisively." Verse 13 tells us, Sisera gathered his 900 iron chariots and all his troops, moving them from Harosheth Hagoyim to the Kishon River. This large-scale movement showed how seriously Sisera took the threat from Israel. He was determined to crush the uprising with his full military power. The 900 iron chariots were the pride of his army and gave them a huge edge in battle. These advanced war machines were known for their speed, force, and ability to break through lines of foot soldiers. For the Israelites, who fought mostly on foot, the idea of facing these deadly chariots must have been terrifying. The turning point in the battle is described in verse 14. Deborah said to Barak, "Move now. Today is the day the Lord is handing Sisera over to you. Isn't the Lord already out in front of you?" So Barak charged down Mount Tabor with 10,000 men behind him. Deborah's command wasn't just a tactical instruction. It was a statement of faith. She repeated God's promise and gave strength to the Israelite soldiers. Her words, "Isn't the Lord already out in front of you?" were a strong reminder that they weren't fighting alone. God was leading the charge. The scene of Barak leading his 10,000 men down the mountain must have been powerful. After years of suffering, these soldiers now marched with purpose toward their oppressors. On the other side, the Canaanite army, confident in its strength, was advancing too. With all their iron chariots and trained warriors, Sisera likely expected to win easily. The flat valley near Mount Tabor seemed perfect for using the speed and strength of his chariots. But what happened next shocked everyone. Verse 15 says, "As Barak charged, the Lord threw Sisera and all his chariots and troops into confusion, defeating them by the sword." This verse makes it clear that victory didn't come just from human strength. It was God's doing. Something unusual happened on the battlefield that caused panic among Sisera's forces. Even though the exact event isn't fully explained, it's obvious that something unexpected turned the odds in Israel's favor, despite the Canaanites' superior weapons. Many believe that natural events had a major role in the outcome. There are clues that a sudden storm may have occurred, shifting the situation. The Kishon River, normally calm, could have quickly become a raging stream due to heavy rainfall. If this happened, it would have changed everything. Rain would have soaked the valley and turned the ground to mud, making the heavy iron chariots useless instead of helpful. The horses pulling the chariots would have had a hard time moving through the muddy ground, slowing everything down and making the chariots easy targets for Israel's soldiers on foot. If the Kishon River really did flood, it's possible that many Canaanite troops, especially those stuck in the heavy chariots, were swept away by the rushing water. The Israelite fighters, being lighter and more familiar with the area, had a major advantage in these conditions. The battlefield must have been total chaos. Picture the Canaanite army, proud of their advanced weapons, suddenly trapped and helpless because of the weather. Their powerful iron chariots, once symbols of their dominance, became deadly traps, stuck in the mud or pulled away by floodwaters. Fear and panic probably spread quickly among Sisera's men. Watching their war machines fail and seeing fellow soldiers overpowered or drowned, many likely tried to run for their lives. The confusion described in Scripture likely came from this sudden mix of natural disaster and unexpected defeat. At the same time, Israel's army, inspired by the clear sign of divine help, pushed forward with energy and courage. Verse 16 tells us, "Barak chased the enemy all the way to Harosheth Hagoyim, and all of Sisera's soldiers were killed. Not a single one survived." This pursuit was key to making sure the victory was total. Winning the battle wasn't enough. They needed to destroy the Canaanite army's power completely to guarantee Israel's freedom. The phrase "not a single one survived" is especially powerful. It shows how thorough the victory was. The mighty army, once feared for its iron chariots, was completely destroyed. This moment marked the end of the Canaanites' harsh rule over Israel. Verse 23 wraps up the battle's story. On that day, God defeated Jabin, the Canaanite king, before the Israelites. This closing sentence clearly points back to the real source of the victory, God. The battle wasn't just a clash of armies, it was a critical moment in the life of the nation. It ended 2 decades of suffering and proved that God had not forgotten his people. For Israel, the victory changed everything. After so many years of fear and defeat, they overcame their oppressors. The hope and strength they gained that day surely stayed with them, shaping their lives and the nation's future. After his army was crushed, Sisera, the once mighty Canaanite general, was in a desperate state. The man who had once commanded 900 iron chariots now ran away alone, on foot, trying to escape Barak's forces, who were closing in. As Sisera ran for his life, he moved far away from the battle, leaving behind the noise and destruction. He knew that if the Israelites caught him, his fate would be sealed. As he escaped, he must have thought about how quickly everything had changed. Just earlier that day, he was sure he would defeat the Israelites. Now, he was fleeing alone, his army gone, and his power lost. Tired and desperate, Sisera looked for a place to hide. That's when he came across the camp of the Kenites. These nomadic people had friendly ties with both Israel and the Canaanites. Sisera remembered the peace agreement between King Jabin of Hazor and Heber the Kenite. Because of that, he believed this camp could offer him safety. Near the camp, Sisera saw a tent that belonged to Jael, Heber's wife. In that time, women often had their own tents, separate from their husbands. Seeing her outside, Sisera went to her, hoping she would offer him shelter. Jael saw Sisera coming and went out to meet him. She recognized him right away and, seeing how weak and desperate he looked, realized this was a unique moment. She welcomed Sisera into her tent, offering him a place to hide and rest. Grateful for her kindness, he stepped inside. Worn out from fighting and running, the chance to hide and rest was too tempting to refuse. Because of the peace between the Kenites and his king, Sisera felt safe and dropped his guard. Once inside, he asked for a drink. He was extremely thirsty. Jael chose to offer more than just water. She gave him milk instead, poured from a skin. This kind gesture likely comforted Sisera even more, making him believe he had nothing to fear. After drinking, Sisera, now more relaxed and drained of energy, asked Jael to stand watch at the door. He told her to say no one was there if anyone came looking. Thinking he was finally secure, Sisera lay down and quickly fell into a deep sleep. It was then that Jael made a bold choice, one that would leave a mark on history. While he slept, she picked up a tent peg and a hammer. Quietly, she moved toward the sleeping warrior. With one strong and accurate strike, she drove the viol peg through his temple, pinning his head to the ground. Jael's action was quick and exact. Sisera, fast asleep and unprotected, never had a chance to react. The man who had led a terrifying army for 20 years died in a tent, taken by surprise by a woman far from the battlefield. Jael's decision to kill Sisera was incredibly daring and dangerous. She understood the risk. If his allies discovered what she had done, there could be serious consequences. But Jael made her choice. She stood with Israel and took a bold step that helped bring freedom to their people. At the same time, Barak was still chasing Sisera. Following the clues left by the fleeing commander, he eventually reached the Kenite camp. As he got closer, Jael came out of her tent to meet him. She called to Barak and said, "Come, I'll show you the man you're searching for." Curious and maybe unsure of what she meant, Barak went with her. Inside the tent, he saw something shocking. There was Sisera, lying dead on the ground, the tent peg still in his head. For Barak, seeing this must have been a powerful moment, full of relief and victory. The man who had led years of suffering and fear was now gone. And the surprising part was that his downfall hadn't come from a battle or a mighty warrior, but from a brave woman acting alone. This moment fulfilled what Deborah had predicted. Earlier, when Barak hesitated to go into battle unless Deborah came too, she had told him that the credit for the victory would go to a woman. Now that prophecy had come true, just not in the way anyone had expected. Jael's brave act ended Sisera's threat once and for all. With their feared general dead, their army crushed, and their chariots gone, the Canaanite grip on Israel came to an end. After the stunning victory and Sisera's death, Deborah and Barak celebrated with a song. This song, found in Judges chapter 5, is considered one of the oldest poems in the Hebrew Bible. It gives us a deeper look into what happened and what it meant to the people. The song begins with a call to rejoice. Deborah and Barak invite everyone to praise God for what he had done. They knew it was God who had given them the victory, breaking their chains and crushing their enemies. In the opening lines, Deborah refers to herself as a mother in Israel, a title that shows her role as both leader and protector. She calls on rulers and leaders to listen to her words, making it clear that what she's about to tell is of great importance. The song then reflects on the situation before the battle. It describes a country filled with fear, where people avoided the roads because it wasn't safe to travel. Villages were deserted and everyday life had stopped until Deborah stepped up to lead. She and Barak remembered how the people had turned to other gods, which led to conflict and danger. They even note that out of 40,000 people, no one had a shield or a spear, showing just how unarmed and helpless Israel had been before. The Lord delivered them. The song continues by honoring the tribes that answered the call to fight. Ephraim, Benjamin, Manasseh, Zebulun, and Issachar are praised for sending brave warriors. Their leaders are celebrated for stepping up and risking their lives to defend Israel. But the song also sharply criticizes the tribes that chose to stay out of the conflict. Reuben, Gilead, Gad, Dan, and Asher are called out for staying behind, focused on their own concerns while others went to war. The song then shifts to describe the actual battle. It says that the kings of Canaan came ready to fight, but walked away with nothing. This shows how completely they were defeated. They didn't gain silver or riches, only loss and ruin. One of the most striking verses says, "The stars fought from the sky. From their paths they battled against Sisera." This poetic line suggests that even the heavens joined the fight, possibly a reference to powerful natural forces that helped turn the tide for Israel. The song also speaks of the Kishon River, calling it an ancient river that swept the enemy away. This echoes the earlier idea that a sudden flood may have played a major role in stopping the Canaanite army. Jael, the woman who killed Sisera, is singled out for special honor in the song. She's called the most blessed of women for her bold and decisive action. The song graphically describes how she ended Sisera's life, emphasizing the powerful image of a feared general falling at the hands of a woman in a quiet tent. Next, the song imagines a scene far from the battlefield, Sisera's mother waiting for him to return. It describes her peering through the window, puzzled and worried about why his chariot hasn't arrived. Her attendants try to comfort her, suggesting that he's just delayed because he's dividing the spoils of war. This imagined moment contrasts the Canaanites' confidence with the reality of their crushing defeat. The song ends with a powerful prayer. "May all your enemies perish, Lord, but may those who love you shine like the rising sun in all its power." This closing line captures the heart of the message. The Lord triumphs over his enemies, and those who follow him will rise strong and victorious. After the song, the Bible notes that the land experienced peace for 40 years. This peace came as a direct result of the defeat of the Canaanites and Deborah's wise leadership. The Song of Deborah and Barak serves multiple important roles in the story. First, it poetically retells the events of the battle, preserving this defining moment in Israel's history. Second, it fills in extra details not found in the earlier narrative, like which tribes showed up to fight and which didn't. And finally, it offers a spiritual lens on the battle. The song makes it clear that the victory didn't come from Israel's strength alone. It was the Lord who won the fight. This idea reinforces one of the core themes of the book of Judges. When Israel remains faithful to God, he brings them victory over their enemies. Another key purpose of the song is celebration. It's not just a retelling of events, but a joyful declaration inviting everyone to praise God for what he had done. Such songs would help embed these events in the nation's shared memory. By remembering this victory through music and poetry, Israel could keep this story alive for generations to come, encouraging future Israelites to trust God in difficult times. The Song of Deborah and Barak stands out not just for what it says, but how it says it. It's considered one of the earliest known pieces of Hebrew poetry, full of vivid expressions and powerful scenes. Its structure, moving between storytelling, praise, and even imagined moments from the enemy's point of view, shows great poetic skill. This indicates that even in Israel's early days, poetic storytelling was already a rich tradition. The song features a technique called parallelism, often used in Hebrew poetry where lines are echoed with slight changes. This repetition creates rhythm and emotional impact, especially when spoken or sung aloud. After the major victory over the Canaanites and the celebration in the form of this song, Israel enjoyed a long period of calm. Judges tells us that the land was at peace for 40 years, a meaningful time of rest and safety. This peaceful era was a direct result of Deborah's leadership and the success of her mission against Israel's enemies. With Sisera and his army gone, the biggest threat to Israel had been removed. The people could now live freely, without fear of attack. During this time, Deborah continued to lead as judge. Her wisdom, so important during war, remained just as valuable during peace, helping settle disputes and guide the nation. Deborah's role as judge, prophet, and military leader left a deep and lasting legacy. She was a rare example of a woman in such a powerful position during an age when men led almost every part of society. Her story proves that God can call and use anyone, regardless of gender or status, to carry out his plans. Her influence didn't end with her lifetime. Deborah became a symbol of courage, wisdom, and faith, inspiring later generations of Israelites. Her song continued to be remembered and repeated, helping keep her victory fresh in the minds of the people. Deborah's leadership set a powerful example for Israel. She showed that real leadership isn't about strength or force. It comes from trust in God, wise judgment, and the ability to guide and unite others. Her model of leadership would go on to shape future kings, prophets, and leaders in Israel's history. The peace that followed Deborah's victory gave Israel a chance to grow stronger as a nation. Without the constant fear of attacks, the people could focus on farming, trade, and building their communities. This season of safety and growth was a clear sign of God's favor when his people remained faithful. Still, as shown throughout the book of Judges, this peace didn't last forever. Over time, new generations would come along who didn't know the Lord or remember what he had done. And once again, the cycle of turning away, falling under oppression, and being rescued would repeat itself. Even so, Deborah's impact lived on. Her story was passed down, her song was remembered, and her bold leadership became a lasting source of inspiration. She stood out in Israel's history as a woman who rose in a moment of crisis and, through faith and bravery, helped change her nation's future. There are several powerful lessons in Deborah's story. It shows that God often uses unexpected people to fulfill his plans. It teaches that real strength comes from trusting and obeying God, not from power, weapons, or position. And it encourages us to take action when faced with difficult times, knowing God goes with us. Like Deborah, may we have the courage to stand firm, the wisdom to lead fairly, and the faith to believe that God is working, even when things seem uncertain. If this story moved or inspired you, consider subscribing to our channel. You'll be notified whenever a new video is released, as we continue exploring the deep and powerful stories found in the Bible. Also, if you found this video meaningful, please share it with others. Deborah's story might be exactly what someone else needs to hear today. Thank you for joining us, and we hope to see you in our next video. Until then, may Deborah's life remind us all to live with strength, faith, and purpose.